guys, it's the first Pilates talk of the new season. We used to do Pilates talk on Thursdays, but I decided to switch it up because my schedule needed me to, and then my schedule changed, of course, because that's how life is. But I decided to switch it up from Thursdays to Tuesdays this season, and hey, maybe it'll switch again next season. Also, in the past, Pilates talk just kind of happened at a random time, but my schedule has calmed down to the point where I feel that I can really commit to coming here every Tuesday at 5:30. But wait, it's 4:30, that's right. So this week we're doing Pilates talk at 4:30, but next week and the following 11 weeks after that, 10 weeks after that, it will be Tuesdays at 5:30, okay? So you definitely want to make sure that you are maybe setting a little alarm on your phone or in your Google Cal, or making sure that you have actually followed the Create Move Pilates page rather than just liking it, so that these feeds, you get a little notification in your notifications so that you can check out Pilates Talk. So Pilates Talk is a live Q&A session, again, that happens weekly. Usually I'm on my mat, so if I need to, I can show you exercises. I also believe that there's a way that I could call you onto the live video. I have not tried this yet, but I'm willing to try. I see a little button that looks like it'd work, so that I could also see you. So that if you wanted to have your form checked or ask about a specific exercise and you really wanted to show me something, you could totally hop on and we could have a whole session just about you and your questions about Pilates and your body. So this is a huge resource for you, and I really hope that you make it a priority to show up or at least ask me questions beforehand. I didn't this week, but generally in the Pilates, in the Create Move Pilates online studio, I'll ask for questions beforehand, and then you can ask me questions there, and then I'll do them live. Or if you miss the live session, you can still ask questions in the comments below, and I will get to those questions next week. So if you can't make it live, still ask questions, and I will show up and I will answer those questions for you. Okay, so I really enjoy doing Pilates Talk, especially when people show up live, which is why I've moved it to 5:30, because I think that that's the best time. But when people show up live, we get to really have a nice chat, a nice conversation, and we really do learn a lot about Pilates and our body. So I'm kind of talking and rambling here a little bit because I am giving people a few minutes to realize that I am doing a live. They say that it's best to give people 10 minutes before saying anything important. But I just wanted to give you a heads up on what's happening with Pilates Talk this week. I've already been live once this afternoon to tell you about the time of Pilates Talk and to tell you about the Pilates, well, you can't really see that at all, the breath and core workshop that you can't see at all because it's too bright. But my Pilates 101 workshop, I'm going to be leaving a link in the comments, and you can sign up for that. It's a free workshop, and if you want to know more about it, just go to the Create Move Pilates page and check out the live that I did on that earlier. It's going to be awesome. I mentioned this in the video I did earlier, but this is a workshop that I usually do in person, and when I do it in person, it's anywhere from $40 to $60, and I'm doing it free for you guys, so definitely take advantage and sign up, because if you can't even come live, I will still be sharing the video afterwards for 48 hours. There'll be a replay available for 48 hours. I'm getting a little wiggly on the video here. Okay, so let's get to the questions, the Q&A part, the Q. And my answers, I guess. That was really rambly. But basically, I only have one question this week, so we're going to dive deep into it. So, drum roll please. The one question that I got this week is, why does my back hurt after I do Pilates? And this is a really interesting question for me, because there's two things that are pretty common to hear about Pilates. Well, a couple things actually. One of them is that you were told to do Pilates to get out of low back pain and to get out of back pain, because you need to strengthen your core and you need core strength. So that's a major reason that people do Pilates. The other thing I hear is, I tried Pilates and it hurt my back. So it's really interesting that these two things are really common issues for people, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would doing something that could potentially hurt your back, that people say hurts them back, actually help your back? And that has to do with how hard you're pushing yourself. So Pilates is great for connecting to the core and for strengthening the core and low back connection, which is a 3D connection, and we'll be talking about this a lot in the breath and core workshop. But basically, your core is 3D. There's muscles. There's more than this. Just the muscles that you can see, the rectus, the six-pack abs. It's actually the deep muscles, okay? So we have our pelvic floor, we've got our diaphragm that helps us breathe, that's part of our core. We've got little muscles along our spine, which are the key here, and we also have this core sitting muscle here. So if we're doing lots of work where the legs move away from the body, like so, and you're not making sure that your low back is pressed down into the mat and you're letting it move around quite a bit, every time it moves around like that, right? I see this a lot. That's your low back catching, and that will hurt later because your low back isn't designed to take that much weight on its own. That's basically the front of the core giving out and only depending on the back of the core to take all of the work, right? So your back might hurt after Pilates if you didn't watch yourself and pay attention to what your body can handle that day. So if at any point you feel a little pop or of the front of the body, the abdominals kind of like a pop and a pressure down, like not like a pop like, but like a pop as in you're supposed to be down and it lifts up and you get this little pop here, or you like feel any bracing feeling. That means that you're going too low with your legs in that position, okay? Or that maybe you were at a good speed, but now your body's tired, and so you need to take a break. So the main part is slow down, okay? Listen to your body, pay attention to your form. Pilates does not work if you don't pay attention to your form. It is a form-based exercise, okay? There's a lot of things in Pilates that have been taken and used in all different other movement modalities that isn't actually Pilates because they're not paying attention to the form in the same way. So it's all about the form, keeping your form in order to help the low back, right? The other way that your low back might end up being a little bit sore is that if you have a little bit of an over-accentuated curve in the low back. So I know you can't see my head anymore, but if this curve here is over-accentuated like this and you kind of live like this, which is 100% how I lived when I started Pilates, and you do bridges or roll downs where you're really rounding this low back and changing the curve that it's used to, that stretch can make your body feel a little sore at first. I liken it to when you've sat in a chair for a really, really long time and then you go to stand up and everything's a little sore and creaky. That is what it's like. Your low back has been stiff for so long that after it gets this movement, which is healthy for it, it actually gets a little creaky and might feel slightly uncomfortable. So sometimes you kind of have to be aware of the style of pain that it is. Is it just that little bit of creaky sensation, or is it more of a pinching pain, okay? So it's important to understand when you're just feeling some discomfort or because you've had some movement, or when you're in actual pain because you have this bracing feeling. So how do you progress in your Pilates work without bothering your low back, particularly if all you can afford is large group classes? Because my number one would be to get yourself in some private classes. My number two, so private sessions, right, where somebody is watching your body and helping you learn and identify when you're pushing yourself beyond your good form and learning what exercises are going to be best for you right now. And you can do that in person, or you can do that with me online in Zoom sessions. The other thing that you're going to want to do if you can't afford those classes, private sessions, is to get Pilates Essentials and really just learn about the muscles that are supposed to be engaged, how different things are supposed to feel, and start with the fundamentals so that you can take those small movements, build them up to larger movements, so that when you get to the larger movements, your low back, which may be a little weak, isn't taking all of the work, that you have learned how to dispense that work evenly throughout your core. So that would be the easiest way. The other ways that you can use that are just like simple, quick tips for you that you can take with you to your large group class at the YMCA, or you can take with you to your online YouTube videos using the Create Move Pilates practice calendar, would be learning when to be in neutral, a supported neutral, or tucked. So basically, everybody is working towards being in a neutral spine through all of the exercises. Even the exercises that I generally cue to keep the low back against the mat, we're working towards having a neutral spine there. It's just that we have to build up to it. So neutral spine is like the gold star that we're all working towards. But maybe if you're experiencing some stress in the low back, you want to use a tucked tail, okay? And that means that the low back is pressed into the earth. And this would be like the easiest way, right? Because you get really, really great feedback. You keep your low back pressed down into the earth, and if you're moving your legs away from you and your legs lower down and your low back lifts up, you can feel that right away. Because sometimes you can't even feel when low back is moving, right? So having an imprinted spine is a great way to help strengthen the core to make sure that you can really support the low back during the core work. However, it does not strengthen your low back in the same way that a neutral spine will, and you really want to be working on your neutral spine strength. So maybe you start with a tucked tail, but I really want to make sure, or an imprinted spine, whatever people call it, tucked or imprinted, I really want to make sure that you're moving beyond there. So the middle step between having a tucked tail all the time and having a neutral spine, which is where we're trying to get, because that's when the low back and all the muscles are working equally, you want to try a supported neutral. And a supported neutral is where you kind of place something underneath the low back in order to keep it in a neutral and let it feel supported in that position. So I didn't bring it with me, but I like to use a dish towel, right? So I roll the dish towel up and I make it just the size of the curve of my low back. And then when I'm lying down, I place it at the curve of my low back. Now, when I'm lying on my back, I don't want to feel like the cloth is pushing my back up or like I'm pushing into the cloth. I want it to just bring some support to the low back. Basically, I'm bringing the floor up to meet my back so that the muscles in the back can relax. And it gives me that same feedback. So if I'm still learning and I'm all by myself and maybe I don't even have a mirror or anything, I'm still learning how low and how big of a range of motion I can get when doing my core work, right? So you want to have that feedback because you'll be able to tell when your low back lifts off of whatever you're using to keep you in that supported neutral. And then you get to do a neutral position in all of the ab work if you feel like you're strong enough. But again, if you're progressing yourself too quickly and you're not slowing down and listening to yourself and connecting with your body, you'll most likely end up in a little bit of pain, okay? So low back pain. So I want to make sure everything's good. Now, I've been talking a lot about the low back, but all of this is true for the rib cage as well. So if you're feeling your rib cage pop around and then at the end of class you have tightness and soreness at the base of the rib cage, it's because you don't have enough of a connection through the top of your core, okay? And we'll talk a lot more about this in the Breath and Core Pilates 101 workshop, okay? And you'll have tons of time to ask questions. So if you want to join that free event, I would definitely take advantage of that. And again, I'll be leaving the link in the comments below. Couple things that I want to say about having a tucked tail. If you happen to have stenosis, and if you do have stenosis, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you happen to have stenosis, you might want to work with a tucked spine most of the time because it will help keep pressure off of the spinal column, which is what you're experiencing with your stenosis. If you have a herniated disc, you need to be careful because depending on the way that the disc is herniated, tucking could be great or it could not be so good for you. So definitely make sure and check with a doctor if you have a herniated disc or osteoporosis, because tucking the tail is a little bit of flexion. So if you've been told not to do any flexion in your low back, then you want to stick with a supported neutral in order to build up to finding that neutral position. So why does my low back hurt during Pilates? Or actually the question was, why does my back hurt after Pilates? It hurts because you're pushing yourself beyond where your core can work and you're forcing your back to take more of the load than it can handle. So you need to slow down. You need to play with tucking your tail, finding a supported neutral, and building up to neutral, okay? So maybe even if a video is telling you should be a neutral, maybe you want to experiment with having a tucked tail. Now, if this sounds confusing and you're still like, I don't know when to do what, you really need some private lessons. And again, you can find a studio near you, or we can do a Zoom session, which is basically like the new Skype. So if you are interested in anything like that, that's great. I can see that Rhea has joined. If Rhea has any questions, let me hear them now, because I was about to just jump off and get ready to teach my in-person class in Guerneville. So I was just checking the time there. So, and if you're watching this later, you can ask questions and I will make sure to answer them. So this was the first Pilates talk of the new season. I hope that I get some people to join me next week when I do it again, Tuesday at 5:30. Have a really, really great evening, and I hope to see you around again soon. Bye!